stop all running water. That probably sounds like common sense, but if you have laundry going or your dishwasher's running or something, I would recommend stopping that because that wastewater is not going to have anywhere to go. And if it does, it's probably going to be going to a place that you don't want it, whether that's out of a sink or a shower or back into your washing machine. We have seen that as well.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not going to be good for...
Less than ideal.
Yes. So step one would be stop all running water.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Duty Calls.
Yes. What are we going to talk about today?
Today we're talking about backups, like
Okay.
your septic system backing up, some warning signs, what to do if it backs up,
Okay.
and how to prevent it.
Yeah, I would say we get a lot of those calls. We get a lot of calls where, people need us out as soon as we possibly can. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that can be, evenings, weekends, holidays. Generally speaking, I would say a lot of the calls that we get, generally speaking, it's at the most inopportune time.
Impeccable timing.
Yes,
I'd
it is
say.
impeccable timing. And we preach maintenance really for the purpose to, prevent that or eliminate that from happening for you. And but not everybody, not everybody sees this, not everybody hears
Right.
us. And so,
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about, some of the warning signs first.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little about those?
Sure. So the most common warning sign that you're going to get before your toilet stops flushing completely is going to be slow drains or gurgling drains within the plumbing system, within the house. Those, I would say, the most common gurgling, if you're running a sink or you're washing your hands in your bathroom sink and you hear gurgling in maybe the shower or something, or it's just not draining as quickly as it should. Those are going to be the most common warning signs before everything just completely shuts off. The other thing would be as kind of a part of the gurgling, let's say you flush a toilet and your shower or your tub nearby, if you get a little bit of water come up out of it, not to the point to where nothing's working, but you notice that you're getting a little bit of that water, that can be another warning sign that something is going to happen here very soon. Beyond that, I would say on the outside of the house, water surfacing anywhere in the yard over part of the system, that can definitely be a sign that there's a problem, whether it's over the field or the tank or any of the sewer lines connecting the two, or depressions in the yard. So if you have, if an area of your yard where a part of the system looks sunken in and it's new, that could also be a sign that there is a potential issue with the system.
Okay.
So
I know another common one, odors coming from your drains.
yes, and we do get a lot of calls with people suggesting that that they're smelling an odor. I would say that just because there's an odor, that's not guaranteed that it's going to be a backup. But like we said with the gurgling, where sewage could come back, a little bit could come back up.
Yeah.
If that gets caught in those plumbing lines, then you'll start to smell it. And so
Right.
you may not have noticed it initially, but you could definitely start to smell it, and that could be a sign that there's an issue with the plumbing for sure.
Okay.
So
So how about you don't really notice those signs and you do experience that backup? What would you suggest people to do?
first step would be to stop all running water. That probably sounds like common sense, but if you have laundry going or your dishwasher's running or something, I would recommend stopping that because that wastewater is not going to have anywhere to go. And if it does, it's probably going to be going to a place that you don't want it, whether that's out of a sink or a shower or back into your washing machine. We have seen that as well.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not going to be good for...
Less than ideal.
Yes. So step one would be stop all running water. Step two would be to contain, any backup that just happens. I know a lot of homes have floor drains in them. That's where the sewage comes out. You'd want to contain that water. I'd also say don't panic.
Right.
Then it would be to your next step. So after you've got it contained, after you've stopped running water, then you'd want to call a licensed professional to come out and pump out the system and evaluate it. That may be, it may take you a little bit, it may take a little bit of time for a contractor to get out depending on when you're calling. I know a lot of contractors are available 24/7 for, emergency service. So even if it is over a weekend or in an evening, I know we personally will go out and do it. So you'd want to get a hold of a licensed contractor so that they can come out, pump out the system. And then once you pump out the system, you're going to want to make sure that everything's, now draining. Mm-hmm. Sometimes pumping out the system doesn't fix every drain. A lot of times it can, but it doesn't always. So you'd want to, after that system's been pumped out, and I'd even recommend while, a pumper is there, to run water in your sinks, in your showers, toilets, things like that. Make sure that everything's working. If it isn't working, then you may have an issue between the house and the tank or inside the house as well.
Okay.
So, another thing, I want to talk about this if we can.
Yeah.
What causes it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, there's a lot of things that can happen with a plumbing system. Generally speaking, it either works or it doesn't. But some of those, you may not notice if it's not working at 100% for a period of time or until it's too late. The biggest thing that we see that causes backups is a combination of either a blockage or an obstruction within the pipe between the house and the tank.
Okay.
Or the tank is too full of solids. It has too many solids in it. It hasn't been pumped out at regular intervals, and that stops the water from coming in from the house. Those two can work hand in hand.
Okay.
So if your tank has too many solids in it and it's not letting wastewater get into it, well, then it's holding wastewater in the lines between the house and the tank. And if there's a lot of toilet paper, grease, or other kinds of material in there, those can get caught. Even if you pump it out, those can get caught in that plumbing line, and you could still be having the backup even though the tank was the original issue. Mm-hmm. Another thing to touch on, the issues with the plumbing line between the house and the tank, tree roots are very common. We see those in a lot of systems. Those can cause problems.
Yes.
Also broken or settled piping.
Okay.
So if the pipe's broken, there may not be roots in the line, but we have seen pipe with a lot of dirt in it, and it's cracked or it's broken in at a certain point, and the water and whatever else is getting in there and washed a lot of dirt and rock, and it's not a clean, unobstructed flow from the house to the tank.
Yeah.
Grease is another one. Grease builds up on the insides of pipes, and it ends up restricting. So if you have a 4-inch sewer line and you have an inch of grease in there, well, now you only have a 3-inch sewer line. If you add another inch of grease, then you only have a 2-inch, and eventually whatever you're flushing down isn't going to make it all the way to the tank. Mm-hmm. So another thing that we see, it's not very common, but we have seen it, where a portion of the sewer line is running uphill.
Oh, yeah.
So water doesn't flow uphill very well, and so it's running uphill, which generally that traps solids in the wastewater, so toilet paper, waste, grease, or other things that are getting flushed down, they'll get caught and trapped in that portion where it can't go downhill, it's going uphill now. And so that one's not very common, but we have seen it. Mm-hmm. So those are all common signs. Another thing would be, or not common signs, causes. Another thing would be the tank is collapsed, or the field is oversaturated, or water's just not getting out to the field. You could have had some debris that made it to the tank, but then it also made it to the field, and now it's clogging off the field, and water's not getting to the soil where it needs to go. So those are all things that we see pretty frequently.
Okay. What solutions can we offer? How can we prevent something like that?
Number one, conserve water. Use your water sparingly. Space out your water usage as much as possible. That's going to be one of the biggest recommendations with a septic system.
Yeah.
Another thing is, don't flush anything that's not toilet paper or human waste. Don't put food particles or food waste down the drain. Definitely don't put wipes or any other kind of non-degradable item, something that's not going to break down in a septic system. Those would be the main two things. That's an everyday, that's something you can do every single day. Mm-hmm. Another thing would be, have your system serviced regularly. We don't just say that to give us something to do. There is value to it. Pump out your system at least every 3 years. Have it inspected annually. Use a good quality enzyme, something professional grade. All of those things will help prevent backups from happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you do have a system that has issues, repair that system or replace that system when or if it is needed.
Okay.
So those are kind of the main things. So we talked about what causes it, how it happens, warning signs, and what to do to prevent it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I mean, today was kind of short and sweet. Do we have an idea about what we're going to be talking about next week, or are we still kind of...
I think we'll probably stay on the topic of septic systems. I've got a couple topics, couple things I want to talk about at least in regards to septic systems. We're kind of getting into that springtime range. I don't want to say systems operate any differently, but the use of the system starts to change once we get out of winter into spring and then summertime. And so since we're kind of getting to that transition point, we're now in March almost. And so since we're getting into that point, we'll talk about maybe different things that go on within systems and how the seasons can maybe affect those.
Okay. I know we're also starting, we don't really have a name for it yet. Right now, I've just been calling it like clip breakdowns. So we do talk a lot about the inner workings of septic systems, the kind of work we do, the repairs we do.
Yeah.
So I think coming up here, since we do have some videos filmed already, we're going to cut out some of those clips so we can actually show you
and explain what's going on. Okay. Cool.
Basically how we put in a system, showing the tank steps, actually going in the ground, things like that. So we're going to be starting that here soon too, just to kind of give a better explanation with a visual, not just a
little bit of a change up too. So.
Yeah. So don't really have a name for that yet, but I mean, that's just kind of what I'm calling it to describe it. But we do have that coming.
Sounds good.
Anything else you want to...
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. So if you do have a backup, give us a call. We should be able to take care of you, be able to help. And if you don't want a backup, you can also give us a call and learn more on how we can help you prevent that. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.